Hello, and welcome back. Today we are going to look at storage accounts and how we can connect to a storage account using a private endpoint. First things first, we are going to go ahead and create a virtual network. So you can go and search for it here, but I have it here. So create virtual network. I'm going to create a new resource group called testing, just so I remember to delete it at the end. I'm going to call it private endpoint 1 UK South. I'm going to delete this address space. Actually, I'm going to add it here, and then I'm going to add a subnet here. I'm going to give my subnet the name of subnet A. I'm going to give it an address range of /24, which is 256 addresses. Bearing in mind Azure do take a few of these addresses, so we'll end up with about 250 that we can use. Rest can remain default. Add, validate, and create once that is done. That has now been created. I just want to explain what we done. We created a virtual network. A virtual network is a virtual space, a virtual network, as the name suggests. And within that virtual network, we created a subnet. Now, subnets, you can create as many subnets as you like within a virtual network, as long as it doesn't exceed the space of the virtual network. So we can have one virtual network here, another one here. In each virtual network, we can have resources. For instance, we can have VMs in this virtual network, storage accounts in this one, however you like. Virtual networks are there for purposes of security and to help route traffic across your Azure network. We are going to create a private endpoint. So the way a private endpoint works is it's private, hence the name, and only other resources in the same virtual network can access this endpoint. So that means if we have a second virtual network, there is no way that virtual network is going to be able to connect to this VM or this storage account. The only way it can connect is if it's in the same virtual network or if the virtual networks are peered. That means we can peer or connect this virtual network to another virtual network, and that's the only way it can connect. Other than them two ways, there are no way to connect to a private endpoint. Go back to Azure. Next, we are going to create a storage account, create resource group, subscription, testing for PRV endpoint 1, UK South, Azure Blob, that can remain as is. Because we are going to make a private endpoint, we are going to disable public access. That means no other public networks can access this resource, and we are going to add the private endpoint. Subscription, resource group, location, name, endpoint PRV, virtual network, which we created, the subnet, which we called subnet A. Here you can see we have 251 IP addresses available. Rest can remain default. Press OK, validate, and press create once that is done. That's all done. Let's go ahead and hit go to resource. Here you can see we can open it in Azure Storage Explorer. What's it called? I think it's called that. Azure Storage Explorer. Yes, it is. So if I hit open in Azure Storage Explorer, I do not have this downloaded. Do I have a link to download it? Yes, I do. If I hit download, download now, I have an M2 chip, I believe, which is not here. I'm going to try and download this one. So have worked. I'm going to hit accept, attach to a resource, storage account, key or SAS key. Next, display name, PRV endpoint. Did not copy, let's try again. Copied, paste, that looks correct. Connect, successfully added new connection. So now if I go to blob containers, we have an authentication error. Was this authentication error expected? Yes, it was, because I'm on my local machine, and my local machine is not number one in the same subnet, number two in the same VNet, or it is not in a secondary VNet that is peered to this VNet. So there's no chance I'm going to be able to connect to the storage account. But what we can do is we can spin up a VM and we can connect that way. Azure Virtual Machine in the test resource group, just call it testing UK South. We do not need this. Windows Server 2022. Do not forget this password. RDP, we do not need to enable 443 or HTTPS. We're going to go for standard SSD. We're going to make sure it's in subnet A, same virtual network, same subnet. It can be in a different subnet, but we're just going to do it in the same one. Let it validate and press create. That has now been created. Hit connect. Connect. I'm going to download the RDP file. I'm going to sign in. Continue. Allow that a few moments to sign in. That sign in, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify that we have access to the storage account before connecting. So we can use nslookup to do that. I'm going to type in nslookup space the name of our storage account. So the name of our storage account is called testing for private endpoint 1 dot blob dot core dot windows dot net, and as you can see here, we successfully resolve and get the address of the storage account, so we do have access. Next, I'm going to go to the server manager, which is conveniently already open, local server, and I'm going to switch off this enhanced security feature for Windows IE. I'm going to go to the internet, stop without my data, confirm continue, continue without this data, continue and stop browsing. I'm going to head over to google.com and I'm going to download the Azure Storage Explorer. Go over to download. We can choose a Windows x64 version. I'm just going to run it as an admin. It's going to be the same interface as before, attached to a resource, storage account or service, key or SAS key, display name, PVR, endpoint. Let's go ahead get the connection string. Successful. And now this time, let's take a look and see if we can access inside. Yes, it looks like we absolutely can. Just to be sure, let's go ahead, create a blob container. We're going to call this new. There's currently no data in here, but we're going to go back to the portal, storage browser, blob containers, and here we have the new container. What we can also do is in this new container we can upload stuff. Let's upload a file instead of a folder. Let's go to downloads and let's create a new text file. Upload that, give that a few seconds, and that should say successfully uploaded. Okay, so that's been uploaded. This Azure Storage Explorer is a very powerful tool. You can do quite a lot on here. You can see this is currently in the hot tier. Hot tier allows for quick, easy, frequent access, and there's different levels depending on how often you want to access it. But with the Azure Storage Explorer, you can play around with blobs, upload, download, file shares, queues, tables, and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.